The United States Department of Defense, the planet's biggest polluter. With hundreds of military bases around the world, the department is responsible for more waste than any other company or country.
This is a consistent pattern of a lack of concern for the environment and for human life, and of course that's something that's part of an imperial mindset.
The problem has persisted throughout history, from nuclear testing in the Pacific in the 50s.
Fire.
To NATO attacks dropping depleted uranium in Libya.
It gets into the water table and it does damage to the kidneys and the liver. It's very, very highly dangerous.
Some countries say they've had enough, like Japan, which is pushing for the ouster of U.S. troops stationed in Okinawa.
What looks like 90,000 people in Okinawa and thousands others across Japan seems to represent people saying, as they have been for quite some time, that they have just had enough.
Others suffer in silence.
It tends to be connected, at least conceptually, to environmental racism. Countries are being occupied and just leveled or destroyed. Afghanistan, Iraq, now Libya. And if you look at a history in the late 20th century, I mentioned Vietnam earlier. Guam is another place where you're going to see this happening. This was going on Vieques with naval bombing in Puerto Rico.
And it happens in our own backyard, like Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where for 3 decades people bathed and drank contaminated water.
I am now totally convinced that this was what caused her illness and her ultimate death.
Veteran Jerry Ensminger believes he lost his 9-year-old daughter to cancer-causing radioactive toxins he and his family were exposed to while based there.
They were told that they had these contaminants in their drinking water 4.5 years before they ever even bothered to test their wells.
And he's not alone.
1 in 10 Americans live near a military brown site or something, some Superfund site, because military bases are extremely polluting. Not only radioactive pollution, also, jet fuels.
How is this able to happen?
The entire politics is controlled by fossil fuel interests, Wall Street interests, and military interests.
And though the contamination is costing lives, the cost to clean up the mess may be too big for the Pentagon, an estimated $320 billion. That's almost half the Pentagon's budget. Instead, the money is being spent here on wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and military operations elsewhere. And in today's climate in Congress, the environment's not at the top of the agenda.
This is the most anti-environmental House of Representatives in history. So far, this Congress, the House of Representatives, has voted again and again to block action to address climate change, to halt efforts to reduce air and water pollution.
Well, President Obama recently announced his plan to boost military presence in Australia. A military buildup also happening in Guam and a province in South Korea. With the Pentagon splurging on expanding their military reach, there seems to be little funding left to clean up existing messes around the globe. In Washington, Liz Wall, RT.